Gee, Donald Trump is no longer a reliable ally, is he? Doing huge damage potentially to Australian businesses and our economy.
Well, first of all, there was the tariff decision, which the Prime Minister said was not the act of a friend, and one that we will continue to press the Americans to reverse. But there's now then this broader impact on global markets that's going to hit almost every Australian, because almost every Australian has a superannuation fund or owns shares, and we'll be looking at the share market yesterday and what they might be bracing for today with a deep sense of trepidation. And that's why, this election is just so important from an economic management perspective.
Peter Dutton says he'd have been able to have a better connection with Donald Trump. Were you too slow to speak to the Trump administration, and how would you do things differently if you were to win government again?
Well, we'll continue to press the national interest that Australia has, our exporters, our households, our businesses. But we've got a better deal than any other country in the world, so I'm not quite sure what Peter Dutton says he could have done differently with the administration. We had meetings at very high levels, and no country on the planet got a better deal. What we're dealing with now is the global reverberations from that, which is going to hit Australia hard, as it will every single economy. And that's why this is the worst time to think about shifting to a Peter Dutton Prime Ministership that would raise your taxes, cut your services, and spend $600 billion precious dollars of taxpayers' money on a nuclear power plant.
You've said the Prime Minister said this wasn't the act of a friend. I'm just wondering, what do you do differently if you win government again? Do we start to distance ourselves from the United States, from that long alliance? Do we start to look to other nations to form better trade alliances?
Well, we've got to diversify our trade. We've been on about that for a long time. We've focused very much on Southeast Asia through Ministers Penny Wong and Don Farrell, a big strategy there that was put in place over the last year or so. We're focused very heavily on India, where frankly we could lift our economic partnership. So yes, diversification, not just relying on any single market, is critically important. We learned that from the tariffs that were put in place by China, which we've been able to lift $20 billion worth of exports over the last few years. But we can't have eggs in any single basket, whatever basket that is.
Let's go to mental health now. Minister, you've got a big announcement today about expanding mental health services for Australians who are doing it tough. Why is this important?
Well, this is really about extending our Strengthening Medicare program into mental health, building free mental health services where people need it, in the communities, in the outer suburbs of cities where you are right now, in regions, and particularly helping young people, because we know that the teen years and the early 20s are when most mental health disorders emerge. So services that young people feel comfortable accessing and going to and visiting are critically important, a very big focus of our $1 billion investment in the mental health of Australians today.
You've got $200 million for 58 new expanded or upgraded Headspace centres. I mean, Minister, Headspace has been around a while, and yet we're seeing often youth mental health deteriorating even further, especially since the pandemic. Is it making a dent? What research do we have to show that these centres are working?
Well, they were evaluated fairly early in our term of government and seem to be very positive. I've been associated with Headspace for 2 decades. It's a really important service that means that young people know that there's somewhere that they can feel comfortable going to. Frankly, when I was their age, the only option was visiting mum and dad's GP, and not many young people felt comfortable doing that if they were having mental health issues. So that youth focus is critically important. But you're right, we need to expand it, and that's what we're doing today. But also we need to fill what former Australian of the Year Pat McGorry has been calling the missing middle. So young Australians who have more complex needs that frankly can't be adequately cared for by traditional primary services, GPs, services like Headspace, but aren't yet unwell enough to be admitted into the state acute systems. And that's about half of our investment today, these youth specialist care services for young Australians with psychotic disorders, complex eating disorders, personality disorders and the like. This is going to be a game changer for young Australians.